Namaste. My name is Raj Patel, aka the Bourbon Guru. So today, March 3rd, 129 years ago, a very important consumer protection law, the first Food and Drug Act, was established in 1897. This was the Bottle and Bond Act, and it was created for two main reasons. The first reason is that you had these rectifiers that would buy cheap distillate instead of aging it, would put rusty nails, chew tobacco to get the color, would put different chemicals to get the characteristic of bourbon, and then selling it for cheap in the market. And people were getting sick. So the good distillers like E.H. Taylor wanted some kind of law to protect them and to make sure only good bourbon entered the market. So that was one of the reasons why this was created. And the second reason was for tax purposes. So, what was the tax issue? When the distillers made bourbon, they were aging it in the barrels, and that could be 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It was getting taxed every year. So, the distillers were paying taxes when they hadn't collected any revenue. So, this law also allowed for the distillers to pay the taxes at a later. So this was the first deferred tax law. That law is applied even today. So if you look at car manufacturers, they don't pay taxes till the car is sold, and they have a deferred tax situation. So that was in 1897, first done for whiskey makers who wanted to defer their tax. The mistake they made is the tax was paid when it was bottled, not when it was sold. So even today, when a bourbon is bottled, it gets taxed versus when it is sold. So, what are the rules for bottle and bond? So, the first thing was around the quality of the bourbon. So, that rule was you could not add anything beyond the original ingredients. The original ingredients were the grains, the corn, the rye, the barley, maybe wheat, the water, and the yeast. You could not add anything else after that. So, it had to be the original ingredients that maintained the quality of the bourbon. The second rule was the distillate had to be from the same distillery by the same distiller and same distilling season. So the distilling season, there are two seasons every year. Through June is the early season, and then July through December is the later season. And what that means is that all the batches that you use had to be distilled in that same season, and when you bottle them, it had to be distilled in the same season, bottled in the same season. So you couldn't take a 8-year bourbon and blend it with a 4-year aged bourbon. But the other important thing was if you distilled it in the early season of January through June, you had to bottle it in January through June. So that's another requirement. The other one requirement was that you had to name on the bottle who distilled it. So it's either the name of the distiller, but in most cases it was the name of the distillery, and then who bottled it. So both have to be put on it. You could have one distiller make it and somebody else bottled it. That was fine. Then it had to be aged 4 years. So a bourbon doesn't have to be aged 4 years. You could actually throw something in for 10, 15 minutes in a new aged oak barrel and call it bourbon. For bottle and bond, it had to be aged 4 years. And that was making sure that people weren't just throwing and then doing non-aged bourbons out there. Uh, the last one was when bourbon ages for 4 years or more, it's going to come out at higher proof. So you were allowed to add water, and everything had to be at 100 proof. So all bottled and bond bourbons are 100 proof. So those were the main bourbons for that. So who was behind this? The biggest individual was E.H. Taylor. Helping him actually also was John Carlyle, who was the Treasury Secretary at that time, and then President Grover Cleveland, who was the president at the time. But there were also other distillers like James E. Pepper that were helping him. So it's fitting that today we do try a bourbon from E.H. Taylor. We've already done the small batch, so I decided I'm going to bring out Old Dusty. So we're going to pour from this beautiful bottle that actually Buffalo Trace has recreated last year. But this is an original bottle. This was distilled in the fall of 1946 and bottled in the fall of 1953. Again, 100 proof. Back in the day, you had this green tax strip that the government gave you Today, that's just more symbolic. So we'll take a pour on that. But E.S. Taylor made non-bottle and bond bourbons too. So this is an example. This is one of E.S. Taylor's bottles, and this is at 86 proof. But there were other bourbons that are also famous for being bottle and bond. So one very famous is the Old Forester, 1897. That's made after. You can find it in every liquor store. But ironically, the founder of this brand, um, George Garvin Brown, was opposed to the Bottle and Bond Act. And then the other one is the Old Fitzgerald. All the Old Fitzgerald bottles are 100 proof and bottle and bond, but there's a connection with Old Fitzgerald. That was Isaac Bernheim. So Isaac Bernheim connection is really Heaven Hill bought Old Fitzgerald brand, but also bought the Bernheim distillery. But Isaac Bernheim was also against the Bottle and Bond Act. So that's really the history of the Bottle and Bond Act. Now let's take a pour and enjoy this. Celebrate actually the Bottle and Bond Act, because who knows what bourbon would have been without the Bottle and Bond Act. This one's a dusty, it's a little hazy. Back in the day, some of these bourbons were not filtered, so that's why they were hazy. But this is one was made at the Taylor Distillery. Smells like a dusty. So this one has actually very oaky, dusty notes on it. There's a little bit of hint of pecan before the nutty side comes in, but it's actually not bad, for a dusty. It's a great bottle. I'm excited that I opened this bottle on this important day. So cheers, and till next time.